You won't believe what South Park just did.
Will you check under the bed and make sure there's no Disney executives under there?
Girl, I don't even know where to begin. This fiasco has twists bigger than Cinderella's ball gown. One minute, Disney's rolling out the red carpet for their live-action Snow White remake. And the next minute, our girl Rachel is knee-deep in controversy. Fan backlash, canceled talk shows, and even a South Park parody that's got everyone talking. I'm about to spill every last drop of tea on how one simple cartoon mockery turned Rachel's world upside down. Let's rewind a bit and see what set the stage for this meltdown. Long before South Park took aim, Rachel Zegler was out here giving interviews about Snow White 2025. She kept calling the 1937 original outdated, telling folks that the idea of waiting on a prince was tired and dusty. Her aim was modern, honey. She wanted a big, bold reimagining that would appeal to today's audiences, or so she said. Now, you know Disney fans, they are loyal to that old school fairy tale magic. The minute they heard Rachel's critiques, they clutched their pearls and hit the internet in protest. Folks were calling for boycotts, saying she disrespected Walt Disney's very first animated classic. And let's be real, that 1937 movie wasn't just a film, it was the film that started the entire animated feature craze. So, a lot of people were feeling some type of way about Rachel's attitude. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the Mouse House was panicking. Bob Iger was dealing with underperforming Marvel flicks, rumors about Daredevil Born Again going off the rails on Disney+, plus the usual corporate drama swirling around. Now he had a star out here riling up the masses with talk of reinventing Snow White. If you think Disney's top brass was calm, baby, think again. They were sprinting, trying to contain the meltdown before it got any worse. And wouldn't you know, it got worse. The turning point came when South Park featured a lightning-quick gag about the Snow White fiasco.
Okay. Ma, I had a dream that I was replaced by a diverse woman.
Oh, not again.
You know how Trey Parker and Matt Stone do. They see a scandal brewing, and they stir the pot with that signature sarcastic bite. In their snippet, a cartoonish Rachel was portrayed as dismissive of the original film, ignoring fans, and bragging that she alone could save society by making Snow White the most progressive film ever. It was short, it was scathing, and honey, it went viral overnight. Memes popped up like daisies. People started quoting the ridiculous lines from the parody, comparing them to actual interviews Rachel had done, and let's just say it was uncanny how spot on the comedic exaggeration felt. On social media, hashtags like hashtag Snow White Fiasco and hashtag Rachel Zegler Meltdown started trending. Now here's where it gets real interesting. Apparently, Rachel was livid behind the scenes. Insiders say she was blindsided, especially because Disney allegedly told her, girl, hush, don't fan these flames. So while she's trying not to respond publicly, the internet is just running wild with the mockery. From her perspective, this was a brutal portrayal, making her out to be an ego-driven diva who couldn't stand the original Snow White. She felt it was unfair, cruel, and completely out of context. But you know what happens when celebrities lash out against South Park? Usually, that show doubles down. Reports started floating that Rachel considered making a formal statement, but Disney was like, we will all drown if you do. So sis was stuck. Speak up and risk a bigger roasting, or keep silent and watch the humiliating parody blow up even more. Of course, that wasn't the end of her troubles. Word spread that Bob Iger and his PR team were in meltdown mode. They'd already canceled a string of talk show appearances for Rachel, supposedly because they wanted to avoid more inflammatory comments. Girl, that's just code for we do not trust you on live TV. So anytime she was scheduled for a late night chat or a morning show interview, poof, scheduling conflict. Some folks claim that behind the scenes, Rachel was furious, feeling that Disney had thrown her to the wolves. She believed she'd done nothing wrong except speak her mind about modernizing a fairy tale. But from Disney's perspective, the controversy was making them look incompetent. They'd just watched The Little Mermaid get battered by some corners of the internet, even though that film had its share of success, and the studio couldn't stomach another fiasco. Meanwhile, fans started whispering, is Rachel Zegler blacklisted by Disney? Because you know how it is in Hollywood, if the biggest studio on earth pulls you from promotion, everyone else might start side-eyeing you. Now, was she actually blacklisted? It's hard to say, but no doubt the rumors flew, especially once the South Park parody blasted her further into the spotlight. You'd think that would be enough drama for one poor actress. But let me tell you, there's more tea simmering on this stove, honey. And you won't believe who else got dragged into it. You can't have a Snow White movie without an evil queen, right? And who better than Gal Gadot? She was a major selling point for fans who were wary about the entire modern reboot angle. They might not trust the new direction, but they sure love them some Gal. Well, Rumor has it that these two leading ladies were not exactly braiding each other's hair on set. At an awards show, fans noticed they barely acknowledged each other, fueling speculation of on-set tension. Then you had reports that Rachel got ticked at Gal's improvisations, feeling overshadowed in scenes that were supposed to highlight Snow White's grand mission. So Disney tried to manage that conflict too, yanking joint interviews to avoid the risk of any awkward on-camera vibes. But that just made folks more suspicious. Instead of Snow White versus Evil Queen being a fun marketing angle, it started looking like real-life drama. Tabloids ate it up, printing headlines about catfights and clashes over creative control. Next thing we hear, entire sequences were possibly reshot to tone down certain moments. Some said they dialed back the modern messaging for fear that it was too radical. Others said they cut out comedic bits from Gal to keep Rachel from feeling overshadowed. Meanwhile, the public was like, is this movie still even happening? Because half the time it seemed like a PR war rather than an actual film production. And just when we thought it couldn't get crazier, here comes another wave of scandal. If there's one thing South Park loves, it's poking fun at high-profile controversies. So the rumor mill started buzzing that Trey Parker and Matt Stone had something called the DI special on the way. This was supposed to build on their Panderverse episode, basically mocking every forced diversity angle in Hollywood. Well, guess which scenario fit that theme perfectly? Snow White 2025. Folks were whispering that the special would zero in on the changes made to Disney classics in the name of diversity and representation. Rachel, being front and center of the most controversial reimagining yet, was apparently going to get roasted again. Girl, can you imagine how nervous Disney must have been? They're already dealing with the fallout from the first parody. A second wave could be devastating if it references all the negative press, canceled talk shows, and rumored tension with Gal Gadot. For Rachel, hearing about this DI special must have been terrifying. She already felt humiliated by the initial jab. So a full-blown South Park storyline could really cement a negative public perception. One source claimed she told Disney they should do something, issue a statement, threaten a lawsuit, anything. But the studio realized that tangling with Trey and Matt is a losing game. Historically, any outraged response only doubles the comedic ammo. Meanwhile, fans started cracking jokes about D.I. White, implying that the entire Snow White project was a forced attempt at being woke. That's the internet for you. It can turn a spark into a forest fire in 2 seconds. Disney's official line? Total silence, honey. They said nothing, hoping the uproar would die down. But once again, that just let speculation run wild. And oh, the speculation was fierce, especially about one thing. As the meltdown marched on, talk of potential legal drama started swirling. Some insiders claimed Rachel was so fed up that she was considering her options. Maybe some clause in her contract was being violated if the studio refused to let her promote the film. Others speculated she might sue over image damage, alleging that Disney had effectively muzzled her after she got publicly mocked. Now, nobody really knows if those rumors have any merit, but they sure got people buzzing. And once you add in the friction with Gal Gadot, fans started imagining all kinds of behind-the-scenes blow-ups, script rewrites, reshoots, entire musical numbers scrapped. Some folks said they toned down the girl boss angle because it turned off too many potential viewers, while others insisted the new story was still as progressive as ever, just hidden behind a "don't worry, it's still Snow White" marketing spin. In the middle of all that confusion, Rachel's brand took a beating. She had soared to fame with that sweet, wide-eyed optimism. People adored her in earlier roles. Suddenly, she was labeled ungrateful, patronizing, or too woke. That's a PR nightmare, especially for a rising star who depends on industry goodwill. Sure, some fans stood by her, saying she was being targeted for speaking honestly about modernization. But the negative voices were loud, especially in older fan circles who worshiped the original 1937 film. And then we have to remember that, on top of everything, Bob Iger and the higher-ups are trembling about Snow White's eventual box office run. They can't have another flop. The brand can't take it. So if you're Rachel, you're thinking, they might blame me for this entire meltdown. And if the meltdown is catastrophic enough, that blame could mean she doesn't get another big Disney role, or any big role, if other studios see her as a risk. Which brings us to the biggest question of all. Hollywood history has shown us a few times that a scandal-ridden production can still be a hit, if the final product genuinely resonates with audiences. So, could Snow White 2025 pull off a miracle? Possibly. If the visuals are jaw-dropping, the songs are enchanting, and the storyline manages to balance old-school charm with new-school vibes, then maybe word of mouth will overshadow the controversies. But let's be real, sugar, that's a tall order. The negativity swirling around this film is thick. You've got the OG fans who feel it's butchering a classic. You've got modern audiences who aren't convinced by the marketing, since Disney is showing so little footage. And you've got an actress who's knee-deep in PR nightmares, partly from her own outspoken interviews, and partly from the unstoppable comedic force that is South Park. If the film bombs, honey, watch the blame game begin. People will say it's because Rachel alienated the fans, or that Disney bungled the messaging, or that the comedic spotlight from South Park made the project look foolish. And if it somehow becomes a smash, you can bet Rachel Zegler's defenders will say, see, she was right all along. People do want a modern twist. Industry insiders are also pointing to how this meltdown highlights a bigger issue. Every time Hollywood tries to update a beloved classic, they risk a huge backlash. Lean too modern, and you lose the old school faithful. Lean too nostalgic, and new audiences cry boring. Rachel's predicament is basically a cautionary tale for any star who takes on an iconic role and dares to criticize the original storyline. No matter how Snow White 2025 performs, Rachel Zegler's reputation is forever entwined with this fiasco. She could emerge a misunderstood genius or a cautionary example, depending on how the box office numbers fall. As for Disney, if they can't calm the raging fan base and handle their star's PR meltdown, they might be rethinking how they approach these live-action remakes. All we know for sure is that the South Park mockery, soon to be possibly amplified by the rumored DI special, has turned a tense situation into a cultural spectacle. By the time that special drops, it might spark fresh memes, more hashtags, and even greater drama if the show pokes fun at rumored legal threats or friction with Gal Gadot. And in the end, y'all, the meltdown might overshadow the film itself. Honey, this fiasco is a masterclass in how a big-budget remake can turn into a PR tornado overnight. Between Rachel's critiques of the original, the outcry from fans, the rumored tension with Gal Gadot, Disney's last-minute cancellations, and South Park's razor-sharp parodies, Snow White 2025 has become the most talked-about project for all the wrong reasons. And let's not forget the endless speculation. Did Disney muzzle her or outright blacklist her from future promotions? Is South Park gearing up to roast her again in a full-blown DI special? Is the entire film being shredded and restitched in post-production to avoid a total flop? The meltdown has so many layers, it's like an onion that makes you cry the deeper you go. What started as a well-intentioned effort to update a fairy tale for modern times has become a swirling circus of controversies. Whether Rachel was too blunt in critiquing the 1937 classic, or Disney mishandled a star with opinions, nobody can say for sure. But one thing's clear, when you ruffle feathers in the Magic Kingdom, you might just find yourself alone when the pitchforks come out. As for whether the film will see redemption at the box office or fizzle under the weight of the meltdown, only time can tell. Maybe a year from now, fans will hail it as a bold, fresh take that overcame online drama. Or maybe it'll serve as a cautionary tale of what happens when Hollywood tinkers too freely with a cherished legacy. Thanks for supporting the Gossip Wire. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more of the hottest celebrity news online.